This is Lewis Hart for the Ring Magazine. Delighted to be joined with former IBF Super Middleweight World Champion Darren Barker here in Nottingham ahead of a big fight night. Dalton Smith fights for the European title. Before we do get into it, how's things? How are you?
Good. Where did we bumped into each other on a train once, didn't we?
Yeah, so we was both. I'm trying to think where it was. It actually was on my birthday, going up to Birmingham. I'm pretty sure. Oh no, you're thinking of something else. No, you're thinking of something else. Going back to it was. I remember
going back to London.
Yeah, so what it was, I remember we was going back to London from, was it like Sunderland, and like I could have picked anywhere on the train. I just picked the random spot next to yourself. That's what I remember. But
and I chewed your ear off.
Yeah, no, look, I could never complain, mate. Could never complain. You all okay though?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm happy to be in Nottingham. I like Nottingham. Some good memories here. I made my debut in Nottingham on a Cole Frotch undercard, so always great to be back.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and a big fight for Dalton Smith. Obviously fighting for the European title. But I think it's always interesting for a fighter as well when you are within touching distance of a world title. I'm sure you'll say these fights are more important than ever.
Yeah, and I think if Dalton Smith was fighting the calibre of opponent of a Walid, Ouizza, without the European title on the line, you could be slightly worried. You could be like, well, this is a tricky one to be fully focused on when there's potential rumours of big world title fights or eliminators around the corner. But the fact that the European title's on the line, that strap makes this a meaningful, important fight, because it's a belt that I certainly was proud to own, a belt that I wanted to win desperately. And speaking to Dalton Smith before the press conference in this actual hotel in the lift, he's desperate to be a European champion. So that means, if there was any sort of inkling that you may be overlooking your opponent, the fact that there's a bit of hardware on the line makes it that much more special.
When you have fights like this, and I'm sure you'd have felt like it on your run towards winning the world title, when you are like that one fight away, that two fights away, how do you even sort of approach that mindset? Like, how is it? Would you ever find? I don't know if you found it for yourself, but ever hard to stay focused in a sense?
Good question. It really is. I used to like the pressure. If I'm honest, because there was pressure, knowing that you got to perform, you got to look good, and you've got to most importantly win to pave your way to a world title shot. It's how each individual deals with it, and like I say, for me to be having that kind of pressure means I'm doing something right. It means I'm winning, and it means I'm in a position to closely be fighting for a world title. Similar to Dalton Smith here in this contest. A couple of times when I was close, before I fought Martinez, I fought for the European title. So winning those belts and fighting for those belts keeps that hunger and keeps you switched on, keeps you engaged. And at the end of the day, look, we are sportsmen, we're fighters, and you want to get in the ring, you want to perform, you want to look good to keep your fans happy, keep your momentum going, and just to keep people cheering and chanting your name.
Yeah, you mentioned there about that, and then there was a lot of emphasis because yourself done it as well. But Dalton's done something similar. Let's say wins on Saturday, but that traditional route of the British title, European title to a world title, it looks good. But do you think it does mean a little bit more from your point of view?
Certainly, from me, it did. Yeah, because. Let's talk about the domestic belts. I went from area title, the likes of Alan Minter held the title I had, the Commonwealth title, numerous fighters held that, the British middleweight title and the European title. They're prestigious belts. They're belts that really, really are steeped in history and have had some great fighters hold them. So, yes, it means an awful lot, because, if it doesn't go your way and you don't end up winning a world title, you can always look back at your career and say, well, I won the British, I won the Commonwealth, I won the European, I cleaned up domestically. It means something. Yeah. And I don't have any issues with these ranking belts, if you want to call it that, because they are a fast-track way. They're a different direction to get into the ultimate goal, which is to win a world title, fight for a world title. That is the goal. So if you're going to fight for an IBF Intercontinental title and it's going to put you in the top 15 and obviously get you closer to some sort of voluntary offering to fight for a title, or get closer to the number one to pave yourself a place as a mandatory challenger, then so be it. But I think certainly in this country there is a desire to go down the domestic route because of what each title means.
Yeah, did want to move on from Saturday night in terms of in the UK, but with yourself being a former super middleweight, I do have to talk about the pit super middleweight. Sorry, middleweight. Apologies.
You've given me an extra £8.
Apologies.
There.
Sorry, mate. I apologise. But I did want to ask you about Diego Pacheco. He's obviously finishes the marathon on DAZN against Steve Nelson. Yeah, excited time for Pacheco. He's another one that's just like he's in similar position to Dalton Smith, where he's just knocking on that door of the world title. So
I think we could potentially be looking at the next star of the 168 super middleweight division, and arguably beyond that, one of the real stars and faces of world boxing. He's that good. Steven Nelson, unbeaten, I think 20-0, tricky fighter. We see him in LA on Crawford Madrimov, winning and looking good. But I expect Pacheco to win and look good, make another statement, and he's very close then, isn't he?
Yeah.
To a massive fight. It's hard to see if it would be Canelo. I don't know if that is something that Canelo would be looking at. I'm not sure. I don't know if he's quite ready to sort of hand that torch over. Would he be looking at, obviously, the Crawford fight very close to being done, and then would he want to rematch someone like a Bivol? Those kind of fights. So I don't know if we'll see Pacheco in with a Canelo, but will we see the title fragment, and will he get an opportunity to win a world title that way? I'm not sure, but I'm a big fan of Diego Pacheco. And what a night of boxing.
Yeah.
You know, what a really good night of boxing. Do you know what I like about the next 6 weeks or so? Yeah. You're kind of getting a bit of everything, and you're getting a big, important domestic UK show here in Nottingham, where Dalton Smith could win the European title and go on to something very, very big. You've got Ellie Scottney defending a world titles and looking to add another to that resume. And then next weekend, you've got a next-gen show. Jules Liddard and a group of the others, Jimmy Sains, etc., all fighting on this card at the Indigo at the O2, where we're uncovering the next stars of boxing. And then, just before that, we've got an important eliminator for a world title, Jack Catterall and Arnold Barboza, brilliant fight. And then we get the best card that I've certainly will ever have been involved in, ever witnessed, on Feb 22nd, the last crescendo, Bivol Beterbiev. What a fight. Yeah. So you get a bit of everything. And
March 1st as well, with Crocker Donovan.
March 1st, how can I forget March 1st? Yeah, the needle, the bad blood, the battle of Limerick versus Belfast. What a fight that is. And in between that, you've got the little small hall shows. So I think the next 6 or 7 weeks sort of is a brilliant time for boxing, and I hope the rest of 2025 continues to do something similar.
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned there, I did want to ask you about February 22nd. On the main event, Beterbiev Bivol 2. How do you view this rematch now? It's a quick turnaround from the first fight, but it's crazy to think we've wanted this fight for so long, and to get 2 of them in the space of 4 months is so quickly. How do you look?
Well, you know, credit to everyone involved, His Excellency, both fighters, the promoters, everybody, in getting the rematch across the line so quickly, and actually backtracking and getting the first fight made, because, like you say, it was a fight, I think, proper boxing people, proper boxing fans, it was probably their number one fight that they wanted to see. So to see it again was brilliant. The first fight was exceptional. I had Bivol winning the first fight, but I've watched the fight back twice. I still believe Bivol won in a very close fight, but I feel when I watched it back, out of the 2, I felt that Beterbiev could have done more, and I think he can do more in this rematch. I think he could have started quicker and kept that tempo going, and we see Bivol fade in the last couple of rounds, big rounds for Beterbiev. If he would have put more of a dent in Bivol early, could he have got the job done? You know, it could have been a different kettle of fish. So I think Beterbiev will take a lot of confidence going into this rematch, but I'm always a fan of the boxer. I'm a purist, and I favour Bivol. Though I believe Beterbiev can do more, I fancy Bivol to get the job done again. But what a fight! What a fight! What a card! What a card! Well, I mean, it's a pick 'em. What's your favourite fight on that?
To be honest, like I'd say my favourite fight on that card, they're all so good. But if you ask me, as you say, like from a purist point of view, the first one, the number one that comes to my head, and it's probably flying under the radar a little bit. Ortiz Madrimov is an excellent fight. That is a purist point of view. That's my favourite fight.
Do you know what? I'm smiling there because it's crazy, because that I feel is the one on the card that is flying under the radar. Maybe not so much in the States, but over here I think it's, the talk was Dubois, Parker, even Smith, Boazzi, way down the card. Maybe first on after Muhammad Ali kill.
That's crazy to think that Smith Boazzi would be the first on. Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts. My old division, I'm very interested in Hamzah Sheeraz versus Carlos Adames for the WBC world title. What a card. I mean, it's remarkable, and the chief support headlines anywhere in the world. Dubois Parker is special. Stylistically, we all know, anyone in the game knows that is going to be a hell of a fight. It really is, and they're two of the form heavyweights out there, along with Usyk, and I would say probably Ajit Kabiya, who's fighting Zhilei Zhang, way down the card. So it's just ridiculous. I remember talking to my dad about it, and we're like, wow. Yeah. And I feel truly blessed to be involved in what will be one of the greatest nights boxing's ever seen.
What's your take on Dubois Parker?
I think you have to go Dubois. I think he will go in the fight as a favourite, but I would be far from shocked if Parker was to pull it off. Parker feels, and I spoke to him recently, and he's in a very good place, very, very good place, physically and mentally. He's got a great team around him. He's in his prime, he believes, at 33, which you could say is true as a heavyweight. On a good run of form. Zhang, Wilder, Simon Keane before that was a brutal display. But Dubois, he's a wrecking ball. Yeah. He's a wrecking ball, and how he's turned his career around is remarkable. From those big question marks of did he quit against Joyce and Usyk, to then beat Miller, Hrgovic, and then knockout of the year against AJ. He's a nightmare. Was he 27 years old?
Crazy, mate.
Absolutely frightening. So Parker's going to have to bring his absolute best. And you could probably say Dubois might have to underperform for Parker to win. But you never know. It's a funny old game, this. Funny old game. Like I say, he's one of boxing's good guys, Parker. I'm a big fan of him. I love him. He's a great gentleman, a great family man, a brilliant servant to the sport. But he's up against it in Dubois.
Do have to ask about middleweights as well. Being a former middleweight world champion yourself, the UK could very nearly have another one on February 22nd. Hamzah Sheeraz. What do you make in your division? I don't know how much you'd pay attention to it now, but what do you make of Sheeraz and especially the fight against Adames?
I spoke about. In this interview, talking about Dalton Smith and Diego Pacheco potentially being flag bearers of their nations and being faces of world boxing, not just in their respective countries, but like I say, faces along the world circuit. And I believe Hamzah Sheeraz is in that picture. He's in that bracket. He's in that group of people that have the ability, the personality, the look, the style to be one of those. Carlos Adames, he's a busy fighter, he's a bag of tricks, he's physically strong, but I fancy Hamzah Sheeraz here. If I was to ask you a question here, what would be your guess? If he's to win that middleweight world title, how many previous British middleweight world champions has there been? Off the top of your head.
Off the top of my head. Because I was thinking
from the start of the Queensberry rules.
Could say world champions. Because you put me on the spot, so I'd say
roughly. How many?
Well, obviously I know
British
yourself,
middleweight world champions has there been from the start of time?
The start. Do you know the answer?
I do know the answer, obviously.
Are you asking how many people there would be?
How many do you think there has been?
If I think now, yourself.
Remember, we're going way back here. This is the start of the rules of boxing.
I'd say no more than 5. Am I
okay, he will be the 11th.
11th, okay,
The 11th, yeah. There's been a lot. But when you think about it, it's not that many really.
No, not
so
at all.
it's a big moment for Hamzah Sheeraz to be a part of British boxing history and to be a potential face of this sport.
Definitely, absolutely, and I agree. It's an exciting time for Hamzah. Moving on, I do have to ask you about, obviously...
I'm pretty sure Ben Eubank.
But yeah, of course. Yeah, there you go. Great guess. Yeah, Ben Eubank, obviously a fight that I'm sure it interests you massively from Ben, from being from the Sims gym as well. Yeah, what's your excitement, I guess, for this fight, and how do you view it? Do you look at it from a biased point of view with like Ben being from the Sims gym?
Yeah, look, I think I've been put in a position quite a lot of times where I'm forced to remove any bias from a fight, and it's I'm only human. It's difficult. It's difficult to do that. You know, I don't pretend to be perfect, but I try and be as professional as I can be. And sometimes the emotions have got the better of me. But I think as time's progressing, I'm becoming more experienced at what I do, and I try and be as impartial as possible. But I'm a big fan of Conor. I really am. As a person, he's been through an awful lot. Tony's like another uncle to me. We speak, and I see him all the time, and I value that man massively. Brilliant fight. I remember the rivalry between the dads, and the hatred that they have has followed through into the sons. They just Ben and Eubank are never going to get along. Yeah. And I'm glad that it's come to light. I'm glad that we've got over the line, because wherever this is going to be, we know it's going to be a stadium somewhere, sometime at the back end of April. The energy, the excitement before that first bell is going to be up there with the best of fights. It's going to be incredible. And you know, with the pride that's at stake, what's on the line, bragging rights, etc., they're going to lock horns very quickly in this contest. And can you imagine for either of those to lose to one another? You're not sleeping. You are not sleeping. You are going to get destroyed verbally by everybody until the rematch, because there's a rematch in place, I believe. Yeah, I'm all for it.
Because they speak there, and I listened to Ben on the Ariel and Ade show, and he said, like, I've never had this feeling towards any of my opponents before. Whether that be a positive or a negative thing, like just put in the mindset of yourself being a fighter, how do you deal, like, I don't know if you've ever had to deal with it before, or dealing with a fighter where, like, the thought of a loss against this person is like, I couldn't think of anything worse. Like, how do you deal with that as a fighter when you know you're almost fearing the loss?
It was nowhere near the magnitude. I don't think I was ever in a fight as big as this, really. You know, my world title fight was massive, but this is mad. But if those emotions are controlled correctly, then it's a massive plus. Yeah. You know, he'll be training, as Eubank will, I'm sure. They'll be training scared. They'll be training fearful. The prospect of losing to a bitter rival. So if you can contain that hatred and that energy, that nervous energy, that will to win, if you can contain it, and that's where the corners are going to play a massive part. Tony was so good at helping me channel my emotions in the right direction. If it can be centered and directed in the right manner, then it's a huge plus. Okay. It's a huge plus to have bringing into a fight of that magnitude.
So with that being said there, where Eubank, like, he's chopped and changed around a lot of trainers now, as you say, he was with Roy Jones and he was with Bomac and then with Jonathan Banks. With that being said though, does that play a negative part? Because let's say he may not have not having a recognised trainer as well, or recognised people in his team, especially in a fight of such emotion. Does that, like, where Ben has that relationship with Tony, like, do you think that does play into Ben's factor more than Chris's?
Well, look, there's pros and cons, isn't there, to switching trainers. Like, you know, I'm not a fan personally. I was with Tony from a year before I turned pro right through till the very end. You know, some of these guys have more trainers than JD Sports. It's, you know, it's ridiculous. But you can say on one side of the argument is more strings to your bow. You're learning more techniques. You're learning more. I guess you could become a more rounded fighter through having more voices throughout your career. But I think stability is so important, and building a rapport with your coach, because in fights of this magnitude, where emotions need to be controlled. It's the person that's been around for years and knows you inside out who's going to help you channel those in the correct way.
Yeah. Another big factor for the fight is the weight. And a simple question from your point of view: who do you think is more of a detriment? The Eubank Jr. who has to make the rehydration clause, or Benn who has to come up with 2 weights?
You'd have to say it favours Eubank. I mean, he has campaigned a super middleweight, but this is, you'd have to say, is his natural weight. He's a middleweight. The rehydration clause, I can't really comment on because I don't know what he blows up to after a weigh-in, and I don't know when this check weigh is going to be. When I fought for the IBF title, you got to check weigh the next day. You're not allowed to be heavier than 10 pounds. I weighed 7 pounds, and I literally ate and drank anything I could. And I woke up the next morning, I was 7 pounds. So I can't comment on the rehydration clause, but certainly the weight favours Eubank.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. Darren, as always, mate, a pleasure to speak to you. Really do appreciate taking time to speak to me. Pleasure. And yeah, all the best, mate. Sure, it'll be a good show on Saturday night.
You've got to try and get me a ring belt.
Did you ever fight for a ring belt?
I don't know if Martinez.
Did you ever win one though?
No, I never.
Yeah,
but you know, like an honorary,
no, I'm joking.
like sort of.
Sorry, mate.
An honorary ring belt. Yeah, I can give my kids one day. I want to get the violin out. Yeah.
no, look,
pleasure.
Yeah, perfect. Top man. Thank you, mate. Cheers. Thank you.